As mentioned in the previous episode, state management is large and a sometimes confusing topic with lots of strong opinions. But before we tackle the various solutions, it's best for us to define our problem. That is, what is state management and what problem is it trying to solve? If you've done any reading about Flutter, you will have seen this diagram. Flutter is a UI toolkit that takes a very functional approach. Our user interface results from the data being passed into it. That is, provide the same inputs, and you'll always get the same output. This has been a recent trend as of late, spawning from React-based frameworks. That is, our user interfaces don't act and behave when being used. Rather, our user interfaces reflect the state of our data. This means when our data changes, then our user interface should reflect it. In Flutter, we do this by creating individual widgets and connect them together like Lego bricks. This creates what is known as a widget tree. When state changes in a widget, then part of the tree is torn down and rebuilt from scratch to reflect the current data. Now, if you've been following along with our learning path, you know there are two widgets out of the box, the Stateless Widget and the Stateful Widget. The Stateless Widget does contain state, but that state doesn't change. For instance, you may have a widget that prints out the username on the screen. But wait, the user may change their username, and earlier I said that the user interface in Flutter reflects data. Does the Stateless Widget update to reflect this data? The answer is yes, but it's immutable state. Once it's set, it can't be changed. When the user changes their name, the UI state change will trigger a widget rebuild. The stateless widget containing the username will be destroyed, and a new stateless widget is created with the new name passed into it. The stateless widget contains the new name, but the widget has no way of changing it. Throughout its lifetime, it keeps the same name until it is destroyed by a widget rebuild, whereby a new widget is created with a different name. Now, you've also seen stateful widgets. This is where the magic really happens. Unlike a stateless widget, a stateful widget can contain changing fields. But wait, if I actually add a mutable field to a stateful widget, I'll run into a compile error because stateful widgets are also immutable. When you create a stateful widget, the widget creates a private class sidecar that contains all the changing state. When a state rebuild occurs, the stateful widget, like the stateless widget, is destroyed and a new one is replaced. Yet our state sidecar remains and is associated with the new stateful widget. Thus, our state persists from rebuild to rebuild. The state associated with a widget is known as ephemeral state or local state. That is, state localized to a widget. So with stateful and stateless widgets, we have lots of tools to reflect and update our user interface based on our data. Except there are times when we want our data to persist higher in the widget tree or in different areas of our app. This is known as app state. This is where state management comes into play because how and why we accomplish this is different depending on the library that you choose to use. For now, let's not think about third-party libraries. We're going to handle everything using just the Flutter framework. So here's a problem you'll run into with Flutter. Here we have two different widget trees. One tree wants to write the username, the other tree wants to access the user ID. This means we need our state to be accessed in two different parts of the tree. To do this, we lift state up to a common ancestor so both widgets can access it. We can then pass state down by using constructors, but you'll see that this is not an optimal solution. Now, some of you may be thinking of putting your state outside the widget tree in what is known as the global space. This is known as polluting the global namespace, which, by its name alone, should tell you that it's a bad idea. By making your state globally accessible, this can cause issues with testing, as it exposes your state from everywhere, which means anything can access it and change your state. Instead, aim to put your state at the top of the widget tree. This means we will want to have a state management solution that allows us to access child widgets but doesn't require the intermediary widgets to know about the state.